Lagos is Nigeria's economic heartbeat, yet there have been persistent concerns about civic trust, legislative independence, and electoral integrity, which have raised questions about the state of governance in the state. We shall be putting the state under the microscope with conversations centered on its institution, as well as the urgent questions about accountability that Lagosians deserve answers for. Join us this morning for this discussion is one woman that has been at the corridors of power in the state, talking about none other than the former deputy governor of Lagos State, who was also a former senator in the state and now a critic of the current trends in the state's politics. We have this morning the pleasure of speaking to Senator Kofoworola Bucknor-Akerele. Good morning to you, Senator Bucknor-Akerele. Thanks for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central.
Good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here.
We're glad to have you. Senator, you've had a front row sit to Lagos politics, both as a senator and deputy governor. Could you give us your general overview of the state of governance in Lagos State as we speak so far?
Well, I wouldn't know what you would say about the overview, but I think that as far as we Lagosians are concerned, we are not happy about the state of governance in Lagos State at the moment.
And is there any reasons, what are your concerns? What is it about the state of governance that worries you?
Well, I think what worries most people is that things have deteriorated in Lagos. The whole atmosphere in Lagos, it has deteriorated completely. And let's face it, if you look at Lagos, Lagos is a mess. There's rubbish everywhere. The roads are bad. Even in places like Victoria Island and Ikoyi, you see roads which you would not expect to see in the capital city of Lagos State.
Okay, let's now start to narrow it to some of
You go to hospitals, the hospitals are in a terrible state. So, as we Lagosians are concerned, we want a change in Lagos State. We want to see better governance in Lagos State, because what is going on now is not governance. It is the dictatorship of one man who picks people as he pleases, and most of those people are not competent to be holding the positions they're holding at the moment.
Just so we clarify, who's the one man you speak about, ma'am?
Well, we know the one man that has been dominating Lagos State, and that is Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is at the moment our president.
Now, madam, in your view, if you say the Lagos State, governorship in Lagos State and this governance in Lagos State has been disappointed in the last few years, so what institutional weaknesses do you think have allowed the state's executive to dominate governance for so long? I mean, since 1999. Do those flaws still define the state, the balance of power in Lagos State today? Because if they're doing a bad job, I don't think the people will keep re-electing them. I mean, that's the logical conclusion.
Well, are you sure the people are actually electing them? Because as far as I know, the people are not electing them. These people are being imposed by all sorts of means. In the last election, we saw people burning ballot boxes, snatching ballot boxes, doing all sorts of unconscionable things. And so are you saying that the votes of those people in those ballot boxes counted? I don't think so.
All right, let's start.
There are places where people were not allowed to vote. There are places where people were being told they cannot vote because they simply look like Igbos. So if you're a Yoruba man and somebody thinks you look like an Igbo man, therefore you cannot vote. So, I mean, the whole thing is in a shambles. I'm sorry.
Okay, let's now start to narrow the conversation to some of the challenges that we've seen in Lagos State. Let's talk about even more recently, the demolitions in Ojulari, Oworoshoki. Residents have decried not just the demolition itself, but the manner in which the demolition has been carried out. They have said that there was a court injunction that should have restrained this demolition from being carried out, but against this court judgment, the demolition was carried out. These are some of the claims that the residents are making, and they are rejecting compensation, saying that at best it's very selective and they do not want that. What are your thoughts about the demolition in Oworoshoki, and how could this have been handled better?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure whether there were proper notices served on the owners of those properties in the Oworoshoki. And if it was done, then I do not believe that demolition should take place with people still inside their homes, or that it should take place at night. I think there are more humane ways of doing things like that. You should have allowed people to remove their belongings. That is, if proper notices were served. But if, as you say, there was an injunction, it just shows the kind of lawlessness that the country is sinking into right now.
Now, people watching this program this morning will say, look, we're a democracy, and it's a game of numbers, and you know, we should inspire hope and hope that our contribution at the polls should be able to, you know, make a difference, if not change, but hold those leaders to accountable. And that brings me to my question. Critics say that decades of a one-party dominance have weakened the independence of the Lagos State Assembly, which you're very familiar with, and entrench a culture of political patronage, which you spoke about. You also mentioned the one man that seems to be dominating politics in Lagos State, who you happen to serve with as deputy governor. From your insider perspective, madam, what reforms could reduce this concentration of power, and are any of them politically feasible under this current structure, or we just have to go to the polls and hope for the best?
Well, I think what we should do now is to educate the population that they should not stand for this kind of dictatorship that is going on in Lagos State. You know, people must be educated to know that they must fight for their rights. I don't mean fight by taking up arms or anything like that, but they must insist on their rights. It has been done in other countries. It has been done in other countries. You go out and you demonstrate and you ask for your rights. And if people are not educated enough to know that they must actually ask for their rights, then I'm sorry, we're going to sink further and further into the abyss.
You spoke about in other climes where people would typically go out to demonstrate for their rights. Here in Nigeria, it seems that demonstrations and protests, which are rights that are constitutionally guaranteed to citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, many would argue that these are being limited. We saw after the EndSARS protest, what happened with End Bad Governance protest. Quite recently, we had the Free Nnamdi Kanu protests, and they went to court. Allegedly, you know, there were some trespassing that happened because there were restrictions by the court. What would you say is the state of protesting in Nigeria? You can bring that back to Lagos as well. And, you know, how our government has handled it, and what really is the future for Nigerians who decide they want differently and want to be able to head to the streets and exercise their rights to peacefully protest against the government?
Well, I think what is happening in Nigeria now is what I would say is quite unconscionable, that peaceful demonstrators are being put down with violence. We have to go back to the drawing board. And I think also what is happening now is that we must have a review of our Constitution. If we do not abrogate this present Constitution that puts so much power at the center, we are not going to move forward. People are not going to be able to exercise their rights. We need to review the Constitution so that power goes back to the people and not to just one man on top.
Are you for reviewing the Constitution or a total scrapping of what currently exists and then presenting something new? Because there are those who push for that, saying that the Constitution we have currently has relics of a military dictatorship, it would seem, and that what we need to do is to come together as a people and put together something new, representative of what our current realities are. So do you think that we should scrap it and start again, or review what currently exists?
I don't think we can use what currently exists. I think we should scrap it. Not only that, there was a conference in 2014, and there were various recommendations made. And all those recommendations, because I was part of that conference, it was all by consensus. I think those decisions should be brought out, dusted up, and the country should try and form a constitution based on those decisions which were taken at that conference.
Now, Madam, you are a Lagosian through and through. I'm sure you're very worried about this menace of area boys in Lagos. Lagos state was once defined by the spirit of the Omo Oluabi ethos, respect, integrity, and community responsibility. But today, many of those values have been eroded and replaced by a culture of aggression and impunity embodied by the dominance of area boys. Some have said, you know, they're used as political tools to snag ballot boxes or do the bidding of politicians. How did Lagos drift from a moral compass to a system where strict power seems to trump civic values, and all sorts of reforms would you recommend to fix this problems of area boys in the state?
Well, as you rightly said, the area boys are being encouraged by the powers that be. So it is very difficult unless we change our situation, unless we change our political system. We'll always have these area boys who are mainly thugs, really. They're nothing else but thugs who are being used to intimidate people, who are being used to snatch people's phones and perpetrate all sorts of criminal activities. This is because of the sort of government that we have, because this government encourages these area boys. In fact, some of these area boys are in the pay of government. So you see that we have deteriorated in Lagos, as you say, from the Omoluabi culture to a system of grab, snatch, and run away with it.
Okay, ma'am. So now let's I think the question is, how do you see that this can be dealt with? How can we get rid of this challenge? Because there have been people who would complain about when the situations where their car would break down. Typically, the Nigerian spirit is when your car breaks down, you get help. People rally to help you, but that's not the reality of a number of people who have complained about being accosted, attacked, and being robbed in the process of their cars having broken down. I personally have encountered a situation where I had a flat tire at 5 a.m. coming to work, and unfortunately what happened was the area boys gathered, and after a while they were asking me to pay for money before my tires can be changed. My colleague was there as well. So the question is, who do we hold to account? And how do we get rid of this menace?
We have to hold the government to account. You see, most of these people are jobless people. They don't have any means of livelihood, and this is why, in order to make ends meet, to actually get their daily bread, they have become menace to the ordinary people. I believe what we should do is we should stop discouraging businesses from running away from Lagos. There are too many taxes. Half the businesses in Lagos are now in Ogun State. If you go and drive through Oshodi and places like that, which used to be places where factories were running, all the factories have closed down. Most of them now have turned into churches or warehouses, but the real businesses where people were employed have gone. And this is because of the harassment, not only of area boys, but of the government itself, because there are too many taxes. You're taxed virtually for everything in this state. And so business owners are running away to a more conducive place where life is more conducive to running businesses, and therefore they are then able to provide means of employment for all these people. Those people who are now area boys could be gainfully employed if there were factories for them to work in.
Now, Senator,
In the days when we had factories running, you didn't have all these area boys around.
Now, Senator, the current administration in Lagos State, you did mention taxes. We disagree with some of the things you've said, because they would say that, these taxes have been put to good use. Lagos State, as we currently speak, is the state with the highest IGR in the entire federation. They will also point to projects like the blue rail and the red rail transit systems that we have, and also the recent hosting of E1 events where Lagos State brought the world together, and the 5 Cowrie Creek to host a world-class event and say, look, they're doing their best to modernize the city and make it a mega city. How would you respond to that?
There are all sorts of things like that which are being done for show. I mean, when you talk about the rail was conceived in the era of Alhaji Lateef Jakande. That was when the rail was conceived. It's not that this present government has conceived it. All right, they are bringing it to fruition. But when you look at it, is the government really providing services for the people? How many houses have running water? How many places are the dustbins emptied on a regular basis? You go to hospitals and you find, I mean, for instance, General Hospital in Lagos, I understand, doesn't even have an intensive care unit. So if you have all these things for show, but you're not having things which are actually benefiting the ordinary people, then I'm sorry, you are not providing governance or good governance for the people. People want running water. They want good hospitals. They want good road. They want to be able to send their children to schools, good schools. Schools that are meant to be free, people are being levied instead of being able to enter the school freely. So these are the things that are wrong.
Okay, let's now look at some of what this administration would put forward as some of the gains of Governor Babajide Olusola. Recently, they launched the Omi Eco project, which is meant to revolutionize the way the transportation happens here in Lagos and moving the way people move freely, especially on the waterways, is backed by the Global Gateway Initiative, and it's financed by the French Development Agency, AFD, the European Union, and the European Investment Bank. It is a 410 million euro initiative, and this is, of course, going to reduce traffic congestion. Are you excited about this project, ma'am?
Well, I think this is a project that should have been done ages ago. Lagos is surrounded by water. Most countries where you have water in abundance, like Lagos, have proper ferry systems which run on the water to reduce the traffic. So I don't think this is something fantastic. I think this is something that was long overdue.
Ma'am, what would you say if people were to push back and say that it's better late than never? Because if it's something that should have been done long ago, there have been governors before Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. You were in governorship as well. You were the deputy governor. Was it a consideration or a conversation that came up when you were deputy governor of Lagos State?
This has always been a conversation, even as far back as the time of Alhaji Lateef Jakonde. In fact, I remember there was a ferry running at that time because I think I used a ferry at one time. I used a ferry going to Badagry at that time. So it's not anything new. It's just that it is now being resuscitated.
Now, I want to take you back a bit to a statement you made earlier with regards to the state of elections in Lagos State. You did mention that some people from the southeast, eastern extraction were prevented from voting, and there was quite a lot of discrimination. And we've recently heard people speak about perceived marginalization of Igbos in Lagos. We've seen some demolitions happen in places where a lot of Igbos domicile their businesses or residents with the excuse of, trampling on waterways or some environmental infractions. Do you think there's a deliberate policy? I mean, it might not be official to marginalize or stifle the voices of Igbos in Lagos, because traditionally Lagos has always been a melting pot for all Nigerians from all parts of the country. Why do we seem to see a rise, especially in the type of language and the behavior of the government? It seems to be, marginalizing Igbos in Lagos.
I don't think that it is the policy of the government, in fairness, to marginalize the Igbos or to specially target the Igbos. I know that during the last election, there was a move to specifically target the Igbos. But I do not think that right now, with the demolitions going on, that it is a target for the Igbos. The Wurunshoki demolitions, for instance, most of those houses were owned by Yoruba people. In fact, I know somebody in my own local government whose house was demolished there. So I don't believe that it is specifically targeted to Igbos, but I believe that the problem really is the method of governance. Where was the government when those houses were being erected? You see, you don't wait until somebody has built a house on a waterway or under electric lines before you come and demolish. I mean, where were the people who are supposed to take care of these things? I mean, you would have been there when the foundations were being dug, and it is at that stage that you should have stopped. You don't wait for people to put up an edifice and then come and demolish it. I think there's something lacking in the way the government is running itself.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're still looking at the state of the nation. We've spoken about Lagos State, and now we're going to expand the conversation even wider. We're joined by the former Deputy Governor of Lagos State and the former Senator, Senator Kofoworola Bucknor-Akerele. Thank you very much for staying with us, ma'am. INEC has been a core of the conversation. You were particularly not in support of the elections that happened earlier this year, the local government elections in Lagos State. You said they were marred with irregularities and called for them to be scrapped. Now we have a new INEC chairman, Mr. Joash Amupiton. What's your expectation? Are you expectant that elections will take a different turn under the new dispensation of this new INEC chairman?
Well, I think we're all hopeful that the new INEC chairman will in fact set a different how would I say, he should, in fact, let us have an INEC that is credible. Because right now, I think most people have lost faith in INEC. People have lost faith in fair elections. People believe that INEC is compromised. And I believe that he has a task to reform INEC. Throw out the bad eggs, because a lot of bad eggs in INEC who take bribes, alter figures, and we're all hopeful that he will be able to give us the sort of INEC that this country deserves.
Now, moving from INEC to the state of politics in the country, we do have to remember that we're still in the calendar year 2025, but we've seen a lot of heightened political activities. We've seen billboards, we've seen endorsements, we've seen campaigns. One would even be mistaken to think that next year is 2027 with regards to the general elections. What do you make of this heightened political mood in the country and also the wave of defections? We've seen lots of governors, PDP states, traditional PDP states, decamp to the ruling APC, saying they want to align with the center and gain more benefit for their people by decamping. What's your take on the state of politics in Nigeria with regards to these things I mentioned, Senator?
Well, I think the state of politics in Nigeria at the moment leaves much to be desired. People decamping, but then I think it was Oshiomhole who said that once you come into APC, your sins are forgiven you. So maybe those people who are decamping have sins that they want to be forgiven. Otherwise, I don't know what they're doing, because I look at it as a case of out of the frying pan into the fire.
What about the issue of the seriousness or the earliness of campaigns? People discussing 2027 and 2025. One would think the elections a few months' time. Does it mean we're more politically savvy, educated, and aware, or is it an anomaly?
Well, I wouldn't say it's an anomaly, but I believe that it is in fact the political trend at the moment, that people are more concerned with politics than with governance. They are more concerned with the next election than, in fact, delivering the dividends of democracy to the people. I think that is really the malady that has hit the nation at the moment.
All right, and now talking about the fear of Nigeria slipping into a one-party state with all the defections happening and people moving to the APC, even being threatened that if they don't wear the Asiwaju cap, they would be suspended. That's, of course, referring to what's happening in Edo State with Jared Tetenebe and Governor Monday Okpebholo. Is the PDP able to provide a formidable opposition by the next election?
Or any of the opposition parties? Yeah.
Well, I think the PDP is. Well, I think PDP is still the main opposition party at the moment. PDP, I think, is the only party that I know that, in fact, has structures in every nook and corner of Nigeria. And therefore, up till now, it is still the main opposition party.
But it would seem like from what those on the outside are saying, the PDP hasn't had its house in order in the longest time. The most recent announcement is the suspension of the screening exercise 1 month, exactly 1 month to the convention, and people don't know why. It seems like there's been a lot of internal squabbles happening within the party, and the ADC seems to, the ADC seems to have its house being put together. Everyone seems to, well, lots of people seem to be throwing their support behind the ADC. Don't you think that the ADC also is, in this case, a viable opposition?
Well, I would not say the ADC is not a viable opposition. But I believe that the ADC, you have too many contending tendencies in the ADC. And I think that is going to be the problem in the ADC. As for the PDP, I think PDP has put its house in order. I'm sorry to say so. I think a lot of the press seems to be partial. And they seem to want to see the fall of the PDP. And I do not believe that that is going to happen. PDP is a very, very strong party. And you will see that in the next election, you will have surprises.
All right. My final question, we need to get your thoughts on the current situation regarding how the government, the courts, and Nnamdi Kanu have played out, especially in this case regarding Nnamdi Kanu. We've seen the protests that have happened for Nnamdi Kanu that led to the arrest of Omoyele Sowore and a number of people. He's rejected defense, and he said that the state of the Nigerian government cannot try him because they have flouted their own, they flouted the treaty that they're signatory to. What are your thoughts on how Nnamdi Kanu's case has been handled so far?
Well, first of all, Nnamdi Kanu was kidnapped and brought forcefully into Nigeria to face trial. As the matter is in court, I would not want to comment on the case of Nnamdi Kanu at the moment.
All right. Senator Kofoworola Bucknor-Akerele, thank you very much for your time with us this morning and speaking to us on the state of the nation, looking at Nigeria as a whole and even bringing it down to Lagos State.
Thanks so much for your time.
Look forward to speaking with you again, ma'am. Thank you for your time.